Washington. Thank you, sir, for that. Let's take you back to our breaking news. As we have now heard, it came in the form of a letter from the President of the United States to the head of the Senate and head of the House that the U.S. will, in fact, be sending 80 service members to Chad, which neighbors Nigeria. We have gotten permission from Chad to use a Predator drone. As our Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr was just telling me, this news is just broken. And as she was saying, sort of in this classic impromptu news conference in the hallways of the Pentagon, they were discussing how it would be 40 members of the U.S. Air Force who would be helping work this drone, 40 on the ground, and so that's the news. The question is, why announce this today? We don't know that yet, but what we can find out with Zain Asher here. Zain Asher joining me live from Abuja in Nigeria. So as night has fallen there, Zain, and as this news has just broken, have you gotten any kind of reaction from Nigerians?
Well, not really, Brooke. This news has just broken, as you mentioned. 80 members of U.S. Armed Forces now working towards Chad to assist in finding these missing girls. Now, here's what you have to understand about that part of Nigeria. The northeastern part of Nigeria that borders Cameroon and Chad, those borders are extremely porous. These borders are not well defined. And in fact, Boko Haram militants have been known to slip in and out of Cameroon to buy arms. So it is crucial that the United States assists with this, because Goodluck Jonathan, the president of Nigeria, actually mentioned over the weekend that he has 20,000 troops in that area, 20,000 troops in northeastern Nigeria. But in order for them to travel to Cameroon or to Chad, they need the permission of those countries, which is why it is important that the U.S. helps with that, because that does slow down the process. But we aren't sure if there's any specific intelligence that the U.S. is working on about the location of these girls. Does this mean that they're not necessarily all in the Zambisa forest? Does this mean that some of these girls have been split up into groups? We're not entirely sure yet. But as we get more information, Brooke, we will, of course, bring it to you.
Zain Asher, thank you so much. Live in Abuja, Nigeria here with the huge news. As we've been saying, the chorus has been louder and louder
in such a short time span. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We have some breaking world news now. CNN has just learned that about 80 U.S. troops are deploying to the African country of Chad to help find the schoolgirls kidnapped in Nigeria more than a month ago by the radical Islamist terror group Boko Haram. President Obama wrote a letter to the House Speaker and the Senate President saying, quote, "These personnel will support the operation of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft for missions over northern Nigeria and the surrounding area. The force will remain in Chad until its support in resolving the kidnapping situation is no longer required." Joining me by phone is Rear Admiral John Kirby. He's the Pentagon Press Secretary. Admiral Kirby, thanks for joining us. Explain exactly what these forces will be doing. How will this work?
Well, Jake, thanks for having me. These folks will be mainly deployed in trying to support the aircraft that will be flying out of Chad that will be conducting these reconnaissance flights over Nigeria and surrounding areas. I mean, so they're folks that will help maintain the aircraft, folks that will help analyze the data that comes and the imagery that comes off the aircraft. So they're support personnel largely. But because they have to be armed for their own security, that necessitated the president's letter to Congress.
Admiral Kirby, why Chad? Why not in Nigeria? Why not in Cameroon?
Well, we've got a good relationship with Chad in this regard, and Chad's a great location in terms of the area in which we're going. We're going to be looking in, and it's roughly about the area of West Virginia, and it doesn't just include Nigeria, but other countries. And so, just geographically, Chad's a great location to do this from.
How long do we expect these forces to stay and help in the search? And do we have any idea when this is going to start, this mission?
They've already started deploying to Chad. They're already there. And
all 80 are there, sir?
Well, I don't know about all 80. We're just working our way through this, Jake. So I'll have to get back to you on the exact numbers that are already there. But it's about 80 total, and they'll be there until they're no longer required. The president has made this a priority. He's made it clear that we're going to do all we can, and this is consistent with that direction.
Does the Pentagon have any better idea of where these girls are? Last time you and I spoke, the Pentagon had no idea where they were.
Yeah, Jake, I wish I could tell you. I wish I had better news. But the truth is we don't know exactly where they are. We still believe that they've been broken up into small groups and dispersed, and it's likely that they have moved. Some of them have moved even since then. So unfortunately, we just don't have a better sense right now, and that's again another reason why we're putting these extra personnel in Chad, and we're going to continue to fly these flights.
I want to play some sound from what your counterpart at the State Department, Jen Psaki, said just a short time ago.
The search for the kidnapped girls is ongoing. The Nigerians are in the lead. We're continuing to lend our unique assets and capabilities to assist in this search.
She said this before the announcement from President Obama to Congress that these troops had been deployed. Is she referring to this aid, these individuals helping with the drones, or is she referring to even more beyond that?
Well, I think right now, you know, I won't speak for Jen, but I think we're talking about these 80. We're talking about the dozen or so that we did deploy as part of an interagency team down to the embassy there in Abuja, and that's really the scope of what we're talking about right now. Just those folks, and no more that I'm aware of now.
As always, with any mission like this, there's always the fear of mission creep. You send in troops just to deploy some drones and some troops to protect them, and then 2 years later you have 5 Army bases and 100,000 soldiers deployed. How is the Pentagon guarding against something like that from happening?
Well, it's not about guarding against that from happening. I mean, we follow orders. We execute the decisions that are made by the by the leaders that we report to, and the mission right now is really centered on 2 things, Jake. One is doing a gap analysis, what we call in the Pentagon a gap analysis, helping the Nigerians figure out what requirements they might need. And that's what the small team that's working in the embassy, which is part of an interagency team led by the State Department, is all about. The second track, the second focus, is ISR. It's surveillance and reconnaissance flights to try to see if we can help the Nigerians find these girls. And that's the track that is supportive of these 80 folks that are going into Chad. And I would also add, you talked about mission creep. Just to remind your viewers, these 80 folks that are going to Chad, they're maintenance personnel. They operate the actual aircraft itself and help keep it flying. They're security personnel to help protect the aircraft and protect the people that we put there, and support and other support personnel. This is not; these are not combat infantry troops that we put into Chad. These are folks that are there to support the reconnaissance mission.
Lastly, Admiral Kirby, given that drone operators work out of New Mexico and places like that in the United States, operating drones on the other side of the world, why is it necessary to deploy 40 U.S. troops and 40 support personnel to Chad? Why can't this be done remotely?
Well, because the aircraft, I mean, yes, you're right. These things are often remotely piloted from as far away as back in the United States. That's absolutely true. The actual operators of the aircraft, but the aircraft itself, I mean, this is expensive gear. It's expensive equipment, and we want to make sure that we protect it, that we're there to maintain it. It still needs, it's a piece of machinery that's going to need support.
Rear Admiral John Kirby, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jake. Thanks for having me.
CNN's Vladimir Dottier is live on the ground in Nigeria. Vlad, what kind of enemy is the U.S. facing here in the Nigerian people? Tell us more about Boko Haram.
Hey, Jake. Boko Haram is a terrorist organization that really became militant in 2009 when their leader, Yusuf Muhammad, was killed by the Nigerian police whilst in police custody. They have been active for the last several years. They have killed thousands of people across Nigeria, Jake, mostly in the northeast, but they've struck here in the capital, Abuja. And as you know, they struck in central Nigeria in the town of Jos just yesterday, killing some 118 people.